Welcome to Driven by Dreams. Today's guest is someone who has dedicated her career to helping women build financial confidence, security, and lasting legacy. Felicia Gopaul is the founder and CEO of Felicia Gopaul and Company, a certified financial planner, money coach, and passionate advocate for women taking control of their financial futures. With over 25 years of experience and a commitment to empowering women through life transitions, from divorce and widowhood to entrepreneurship, Felicia helps her clients move from self doubt to security and confidence. You're in for a conversation full of wisdom, practical tips, and inspiration. Let's dive in. Hi, Felicia. I'm so excited to have you here.
I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Before we dive into your journey, let's start with a fun rapid fire round to get to know you a little bit better.
Sure.
So, what's one word your closest friends would use to describe you?
Resilient.
First thing you do to reset on a hard day?
Turn off everything and read a book.
If you could instantly master one new skill, what would it be?
The one skill I would master would probably be learning languages quickly.
A small daily habit that has a big impact on your mindset.
Showing up.
Most surprising thing people don't know about financial advisors.
That there's different types of financial advisors that do different things.
What book changed how you view money or success?
The Wealthy Barber.
And what's your superpower?
That's my superpower. I'm a connector and I'm a person that stays in contact with people. So that's my superpower.
Well, thanks for playing along with those. So now let's rewind a bit and talk about your entrepreneurial journey. So could you please share a bit about that?
Well, I've been an entrepreneur for many years, but it really started, I was thinking about that as you were asking the questions, but it really started with, as for a lot of people, it started with an multi-level marketing. So I got started with multi-level marketing back in the 1990s, and that was really the thing that had me stay with it as long as I have.
It's amazing. You mentioned in your bio that you started and restarted your entrepreneurial journey multiple times. So what did those turning points teach you about yourself?
Well, first and foremost, I would say that it taught me that I was really into this. So many people if I talk to people, a lot of people say I used to be in financial services, but I'm somebody who has been in financial services with various different hats multiple times. And what was clear to me is that I wanted to stay in financial services until I found a hat that fit my head.
What first drew you to financial planning, and how did that evolve into starting your own firm?
There's really three things that really contributed to me becoming in financial services. The first is when I was in college, I was dating a man who turned down a job making more than either one of my parents ever made, and I couldn't even imagine that. That just seemed out of the norm. You know, I kind of came from one of those families where you work hard, you go to school, you get a degree, you work for a long time at a firm, and that was kind of the way I was trained to do it. So for somebody to turn down a job making more than either one of my parents were making at the time after careers in the industry, that was just outside of my norm. So that was the first story. The second story is I worked as an accountant when I first got out of school. And when I was working as an accountant, I was working in the estate planning department of a law firm. And I was working with a lot of people who were really wealthy. Actually, they were all millionaires. And I had a gentleman who ended up invited me. One of our processes was to take pictures of everything we were reporting to the IRS. And one of the pictures that came across my desk was a 450 SL Mercedes convertible, which was kind of my dream car at the time. And I was talking to him. The picture went across. I said, "Oh, that's my dream car," and that was the end of the conversation. Fast forward 8 months, I've been working with him for 8 months, it's a 9-month process, and he calls me up and he said, "Felicia, you made this process, very easy, and I'd like to offer you the opportunity to buy that Mercedes." And I'm telling you, Niksha, that Mercedes had come into my mind and gone out of my mind. I wasn't thinking about it at all, and he offered me the opportunity to buy that red Mercedes convertible for $7,000. And I couldn't do it. I hadn't handled my finances well. I didn't have good credit. I didn't have savings. And I had to tell him I couldn't buy the car. And he paused and he says, "Felicia, do you mind if I say something to you?" And I'm just like, "Sure." And he said, "Felicia, every single day you work with millionaires like me. If you ever want to be like me, you're going to have to do something different because there's no reason you shouldn't have been able to buy this Mercedes or finance the Mercedes or do something with this Mercedes." And that conversation changed the way that I was thinking, and it told me that I need to learn something about this financial stuff that perhaps my parents hadn't shared with me. And so that for me was really the turning point on the career. You know, the boyfriend who turned down the job making more than my parents, me ended up not being able to buy the Mercedes. But the final piece to that, Tanisha, was really the fact that when I was in college, my parents got a divorce. And we went from my father taking care of the finances to my mother, who had never had to deal with the finances, really just having to take that on while I'm in college. And she had to fill out the FAFSA forms, and she didn't know any of the information. She didn't know where the information was. She didn't know anything. And I really just saw her struggling. And I said to myself, I never want to be in that position ever myself. And so for me, those were the three turning points or the three pieces that had me stitch together. I need to learn something about this personal finance thing because it makes a difference in people's lives.
It's amazing how you went through that.
Yeah.
You mentioned resilient as a word your friends would describe you. So could you share a moment where you had to tap into that resilience the most?
Ooh. Um, it just seems to be one of those things that I have to keep tapping into. So when I got married, I moved from California to New Jersey. And so, you know, my practice at that point, I had to restart it. And then we were out there for 12 years, and my husband got another job that brought us back to California, and I had to restart my practice again. My father got sick, and I took some time off and took care of him, and I had to restart my practice again. So you see, resilience was just one of those things that I had to be if I was going to make the transitions that's kept me in the industry for as long as I've been in the industry.
How did you deal with the changes in the industry after taking those gaps?
You know, I'm a studier. I'm somebody who studies the industry, who pays a lot of attention to what's going on. So even when I was making transitions, I was always aware of what was happening in the industry. So it wasn't like I was restarting completely anew. I took what I had already learned that had worked for me. I added in all the elements that had shifted and changed into the industry, and then I reformatted it so that it worked for me. And so that was really the things that I've had to do as I've made the shifts and the changes that I've made over the years.
You've helped hundreds of women, so what's the most common financial barrier you see them face, and how do you help them overcome it?
That's a good one. Um, so there's one of the things that happens in the industry is for whatever reason, women are really, really smart in so many other ways, but for some reason, for some women, they just don't take the skill set that they've developed in other areas and apply it to personal finance. So what do I mean by that? I mean that I often will hear women say that I don't know anything about money. I'm not smart about money. And I'm just like, well, you're smart in all these other areas. Why aren't you smart in this area? It's just a unfamiliar conversation and it's unfamiliar language. Just as you had to learn calculus or you had to learn whatever skill you had to learn in order to be a master in your career, just need to take that same intention into personal finance, and you've got to erase the conversation that you're not good at it. You're just not good at it yet, and that's something that you can overcome.
I know you mentioned in your bio that you're a CFP board ambassador. So, could you share what that is and what's one myth about financial planning that you find yourself debunking
Mm.
regularly?
So there are over 100,000 certified financial planners now, and there is a group of 50 people who represent financial planners on the CFP board. And so I was one of 50 people out of 100,000 who have the CFP designation, who often were the people that the media went to when they were looking for experts in various different things. That's not to say that other CFPs weren't capable. They just weren't represented on the board. And so I was one of the people who did that. And I did that for about 2 to 3 years. And that was a great opportunity for me to get the word out. In terms of your question, what's a myth about the industry? I think the myth about the industry is that we are one thing. When I first came into the industry, I have to tell you, and this tells you something about who I am and how long I've been in the industry. I There was a lot of financial press that was saying, if you're going to talk to anybody in the financial services, you need to talk to a CFP. So I went to the yellow pages. So this is telling you how long it's been. I went to the yellow pages and I'm flipping through the yellow pages. Anybody had CFP after their name, I went and I talked to. So I ended up talking to 18 different people about what is a CFP. And what I found is that not everybody who has the initials after their names was doing the exact same thing. I was just like, some people were focused on, only working with school teachers. Some people were working on just the investment piece, and some people were doing comprehensive financial planning. So when I made the determination, and after I talked to all those people, I decided that I wanted to do comprehensive financial planning, which means that I'm looking at all of the pieces of a person's personal finances, not just a specific area. And I think that that's one of the key distinctions between CFPs and other people who are in the industry is there is no one way that a person could be a CFP.
How do you decide what kind of CFP you want to go to,
I think
depending on your
it's
circumstances?
Yeah, it really kind of depends. I'm always going to, no matter what door somebody comes through to meet me, I'm always going to look at their comprehensive picture. Now, I may only operate in one particular piece because that's what they want or what's what they need, but I always want to look at their entire picture. And part of that, Anisha, was the fact that what's true is I don't want to break something over here because I didn't look at it. I didn't want to do something in this particular area, which is the person's interest, and not pay attention to this other thing because I could be breaking something over here, but because I wasn't looking at it, I wasn't even aware of that. And I think that that's one of the things that people who aren't necessarily doing comprehensive financial planning maybe don't fully serve a client, by not looking at their entire financial picture.
Thanks for sharing that. So, you talked about how few women feel like they they can't transfer their smarts over into financial planning. So, how do you make them feel prepared to take those decisions? And what do you think contributes the most to that lack of confidence?
A lot of people don't talk about money. Our parents don't talk about money. They're not teaching it in schools. And so a lot of people aren't getting exposed to money. And so for us, and part of what we do through the firm that I work through is we have a whole education process. We have an 8-week course, which is called the Financial Foundations course. And basically what we're doing is we are talking people and introducing to various different aspects of financial planning. And it's great for somebody who is just getting started, and it's great for somebody who's mid-career, and it's great for somebody who is closer to retirement because we're covering all of the gamut. The reality is not all of the pieces to it will apply, but kind of like we're talking about putting together a puzzle. You still need to know all of the pieces because as you move from different stages of life, different things are going to be important to you. And we talk about it all in this course.
So you work with women doing some of the most emotionally challenging transitions. So how do you balance emotional support with practical financial guidance?
Well, I think part of being a good financial advisor, no matter what kind of designation you have, is you've got to be a good listener. So part of personal finance is being a good listener. You listen to what they're going through, what they want to accomplish, what goals they have, and then you put together and come up with a plan to help them execute that. So I think that's probably one of the keys to being effective in this industry is just being a good listener who can help people with different through the different transitions. So the transitions that people are typically going through who work with me are they're starting a new business if they're business owners, or they're gone through a divorce, or the death of a partner, or they're dealing with a personal illness. So those are some of the things that people are going through and some of the transitions people are going through in this day and age. And given what's currently going, one of the other transitions is downsizing. They're being let go from their companies and they've got to make decisions about retirement plans. How are they going to continue to keep a roof over their house? How are they going to find the next job? How are they going to make all of these changes and making them in the most effective way that will benefit them. So if they run into if if they happen to need to make decisions, having somebody who would be a good partner as they talk through and think through those changes can be really, really effective and will make a difference for people long term.
Thank you for sharing that. So what are some foundational financial habits or protections that every woman should put in place early?
Ooh. So I've got a 24-year-old who's just starting her first job on Thursday. So this is something that is really hitting home. So first and foremost, it's about making sure your foundation is in order. So, what is your foundation? Making sure you've got your 3 to 6 months of fixed expenses set aside such that if you happen to um need to tap into it, it's there and available to you. Making sure you have the appropriate insurance, making sure you have life insurance, health insurance, disability insurance, sometimes through your employer, sometimes you need to get that on your own. And that's kind of the foundations before you start to invest. Now, my daughters have me as a parent, so I also got them starting with Roth IRAs on their first jobs. And so that's kind of some of the foundational information that I talk to young people who are just getting started. Make sure you've got your emergency funds set up and make sure that you've got your insurances in place before you spend a lot of your time and attention on building up your investments. But I always am a and girl as an or girl. So sometimes I hear people say, well, should I wait until I do this? Or should I do that? And I am always like, if there's a choice between saving and investing, even if it's not as much as you want in either area, I would prefer that you do that rather than waiting till the perfect time before you start with either one of those things. Because the reality is, for a lot of people, unless they win the lottery, they have to make a decision between those two. And I would prefer that they have something going into those two areas rather than waiting for the perfect time when I've paid off my schooling, when I've graduated, when I've, whatever that story is for them. I would prefer people to get started today because it makes a difference. You know, we talk about the time value of money a lot in my industry. And so understanding that, the year, 2 years, 5 years that you wait for perfection is 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years that you'll never get back. So start today, even if it's modestly, it's better for you, in my estimation, than waiting until the perfect time.
That's valuable advice. Thank you.
Mhm.
In your 25 years of working with women across the United States, how have you seen the financial services industry evolve in terms of serving women specifically? And where does it still fall short?
Mm. So I go to industry events. And when I go to industry events, one of the good things is there's a lot more women in the industry than there have been ever. That's the good news. The bad news is still there's not a line for the women's restroom. You know what I'm saying? There's not a line. It's mostly men who are there. And the women, you'll find that women often are the support person as opposed to the lead person. I think that that's a disservice. One of the things that the CFP board has really been trying to do is increase the number of people of color as well as women in the industry. It's stayed pretty flat for the last 10, 15 years. And I think that that's unfortunate. But I think that's also because one of the things that the industry does a disservice for is a lot of positions are commission based as opposed to salary based. And unless you have got deep pockets or a husband that works or whatever that is for you, it can be hard to get started in the industry and stay in the industry because you need to eat while you're building your business. And that can be really challenging the way that the industry is currently structured.
Well, thank you so much for being here today, Felicia. Do you have any final words of wisdom before we start wrapping this up?
Oh, absolutely. I would say that for people who are listening, no matter what stage of your development, find somebody that you want to work with, somebody who will listen to you. One of the questions that you asked that I was thinking about is there is sometimes when I talk to women, they say that their former advisor, who often was a male, treated them like they were a little girl and didn't necessarily give them the benefit of their smarts, they didn't necessarily, treat them well, let's put it that way. They didn't necessarily treat them well. So find somebody who is a good fit for you, who is a good fit for what it is you want, and isn't going to give you a little pat on the head and say, "Just listen to me, little girl, and just do what I say to do." And I think that as more women come into the industry, as more women are looking for women advisors, then that's gonna be, changing the gears. They say that of the trillions of dollars that will pass on in the next generation, 10, 15 years, a lot of it is going to women. And so the industry really needs to make an effort to bring more women into the industry because a lot of women are looking for women advisors to work with. And if you want to be part of that, either on the I'm inherited money or I am working with these types of people, then it's a good place for you to be as a woman advisor.
Well, Felicia, thank you so much for joining me today. Your passion for guiding women through financial transformation is truly inspiring, and I've learned a lot, so thanks.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.